Hello guys and girls, how's it going? Screezler here, and I hope you're all well and you join me today for a game in the... let's get this right, deep breath, the Commentate, the 7546. Now I'm not going to try and say Italian numbers because we all know that my Italian sucks, like most other of my accents. Now, the Commentate of 7546 was a sort of one of the last tanks to enter service with the Italians, and were tank hunter derivatives of the M42 medium tank. The 7546 was a slightly lower model. It was designed to be slightly lower than the others, a little bit wider, to have a slightly roomier area in the casemate for the crew. It also was designed to have the 7546 gun in it, the CA Modelia 434. Now, this was in German service under the 7.5cm flak 264-3i. I know, lots of lovely numbers. But a very good gun, basically. A very good anti-tank gun. A very good velocity, very powerful gun, very punchy gun indeed. Now, the design didn't really get into Italian hands. Majority of these were actually produced by Germany for the German side of Italy after the armistice. Eventually, only around 11 to 15 vehicles were actually built, named the M42T for Tedesco, German, during the fall of 1943, and some were called the Stug M43 mit 7546 852i in German service. Yes, because Germans have catchy names for their tanks. So, this tank is a very low profile, very decent little tank hunter. It's a 4.3, so you're generally going to be always up tier to 4.7 at least. And if you take out the whatever it's called, the M4 Tripico, you're going to be up tier to 4.7 every match. So you might as well take it with you. Now, what I wanted to talk about today, other than showing off a good replay of me just finding a fantastic little flanky spot here, was Italian 4.7 grind. Yeah. Germany used to be one of the worst grinds for the getting to the Leo. Getting to the Leo from the Panthers and Tiger 2s used to be a pretty annoying grind. There was a big gap between the tanks. But this has since been lowered and changed. However, the Italians, I think technically they're still in beta, I can't remember in all honesty, have a problem. Because, well, Italy didn't really do much after 1943. So, what we're left with are some really, really terrible tanks. Now, one of the other things I wanted to actually mention today was the fact the M42 anti-air variant, basically the Italian whirlwind as you call it, is above the R3 T20 F8, the Ferrari with a 20mm on top of that. I don't understand this decision. Putting the R3 down to whatever BR it is, like 3.2 or 3.3 or something like that. It's very low BR basically, and putting the M42 up, it makes no sense. The M42 has no anti-aircraft capability. The guns, you've only got about a 4-second burst for all the guns, and then you have to reload. It's ludicrous. It makes no sense. Anyway, that's not the main reason I'm talking about this. It's just something that annoyed me. Because I was looking over the original Italian Ground Forces Gaijin release of the vehicles, and it has the M42 below the R3. Now I spotted something over there. There it is. There you are. Trying to get that range in now. Oh, a little bit low. Try again. A little bit high. Always fun getting that range in sometimes. Is the third time going to be lucky? No, we ricochet off the back. Of course we do. Typical. Anyway, the 4.3 grind is just horrendous for the Italians. And it really, really hurts because there's not much you can do. Now, the M4 Tipio, okay, is not a bad tank. But it's the only tank you've got at 4.7. You don't have any backup tanks. You've got nothing. The only thing you've got is the P40, which is a lot lower in its BR and it's a rank lower, so it means you can't grind higher BR vehicles with it effectively. So trying to grind the 6.3s and the 6.7s is a really horrible thing to do. Now the first 6.3 you're going to get is the Fiat 6614, which is the recoilless rifle Fiat, just a single recoilless rifle on it. You're also going to get the what is it called? The really, really weird hybrid of like a Jumbo and a Hellcat, whatever that one's called. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, you're going to get that weird ass tank as well. Well, tank destroyer. So basically an open top sort of Jumbo. I think it's the M3A1 chassis. So it's the M3 6B1, I think. So I'm just looking at my list. And so at 6.3 you've got those two, which aren't really tanks. You don't have any proper armour. So you've got to wait till you get to the M26A1 before you actually get a tank. So it becomes really, really problematic. And there's no backup vehicles for you, so you struggle in matches. So what can we do to fix this? It's all very good complaining, but what can we do to fix this? Well, one option I would say is, being that we've already kind of got the Romanian vehicles in the Italian tech tree, is make some Romanian vehicles appear. So we could go Czechoslovakia, Romania, things like that. With Romania, it means it gives us a Panzer III and a Panzer IV. So we could get Panzer IVs, which will work perfectly around that 4.7 area. It will give you a good backup vehicle, gives you a relatively well-built tank, a very good tank. It just gives you something that's much more reliable and you have a backup for it. So you actually, if you die in the Tripio, you've got a vehicle you can use that isn't a tank destroyer or a bloody Ferrari. You know, it's ridiculous that, you know, there is just that lack of that real lack of backup vehicles for you at that BR, and it really sucks as well because it just completely ruins your effectiveness. Now you've got some okay tank destroyers, and you've of course got the 90mm bloody Breda and stuff like that, but they're not that useful. Like the Breda can be taken out by a plane with 7.5mm machine guns on it, flying over the top of it. The 75-46 is good when it's in a position where it can be good, but it has to be in that position, which is side flanking, especially when you're facing wave upon wave of jumbos. Because if you're facing jumbos from the front, you're not going to be able to do much unless you manage to hit the machine gun port, which is quite hard from a vast distance away. So adding in a different nations would make sense. So as I said, Romania is a good idea, because what they said is Italy's going to be sort of the melting pot of all the Access nations. So yeah, add in Romania. Possibly the Polish, I think, are going to be more towards the German tech tree, but you could possibly look at that. As I said, there was Czechoslovakia as well, which is another option. You know, there are some very good little options around. Just some different vehicles and some tanks that could work around that later BR stage. You know, these nations were generally using captured Soviet machines or German machines, so you sort of build up a tech tree like that, similar to how the French have theirs, where they've got their vehicles, but they've also got a lot of other vehicles to supplement them. I don't understand why the Italians have the Americans supplementing them more than the Germans, because the Germans work perfectly for the lower BR range. It makes no sense to have the Italians in there at, say 4.7 with just no backup vehicles, whereas you look at the French, who would, if they didn't have the American influence, they would have no backup vehicles either. But the French, it makes sense because the French were part Allied, part German, part Axis, but similar to the Italians, I guess. But having the Italians be more of a Germanic base, having them be more of an Axis side, would make great sense, and it means you could add some really interesting vehicles, like some of the Romanian tank destroyers could be added. There were some very cool Romanian tank destroyers and tank hunters based on the LT-35 chassis and stuff like that. Basically, they became Hetzers. Not Hetzers. Well, they did become Hetzers, actually, but they became like the Marder and stuff like that. So, we've got a tank coming along here. We'll take aim. Boom. And damage the track at least. Follow-up shot and take out the crew. So you could add some more interesting tanks in that respect. You can add some of the German tanks, and it would just help fill out that Italian tech tree so it's not such a horrendous grind, which it currently is. Good old jumbos. So it is hard. It is very hard to have this sort of Italian tech tree for tanks because, as I said, they've got some really good, post-war tanks, and they've got some really good sort of early war tanks. And I'm very happy with that shot on that Churchill. Was looking a little bit low, in all honesty. But it just needs filling out a bit. It's strange that Japan has a much better tech tree setup than, say, Italy. Japan has a healthier tech tree setup, where it makes sense and everything flows, and you've got vehicles that actually work, whereas the Italian tech tree is just so cobbled together, it doesn't really flow, and it's almost designed to make you want to use Golden Eagles to get past that 4.7 grind, because you don't have any 5.7, you don't have any 5.3s, you don't have anything above 4.7 until you get to the 6s. It's such a huge gap between the BRs that it effectively just makes it impossible to really grind out that sort of that next line. And it makes it harder because, of course, you're in a lower BR tank, you get slightly less research points and stuff like that for the 6.7, 6.3s and stuff. It just makes it very difficult, and I really hope they do something to fix this issue. And it's an issue that, it's been said since day one, but it doesn't seem to be getting any notice or development, which is very, very frustrating. So having those other nations' tech trees would really, really help, and really make a difference, in my opinion. It doesn't need to be, a huge amount of things. I'd say sort of Hungary would work quite well, because Hungary would give us things like a few different variants, or Romania works really well because it gives us some interesting tanks. There's, the LT-35s are fantastic. They could work their way in. We could even get the crazy Valtora de Kera R35, which is basically a Renault R35 with a Russian 45mm put into a turret, which is just silly but awesome. So we could get some silly things like that. There are the tank destroyers, as I said. There's some options there for some interesting tank destroyers. Even though they did sort of become the Marders, and finally a tank that we'd annoyed relatively enough has come and just dropped a bomb on us. So 6 kills in that spot, not too bad, not too bad. Do you hate how it jumps away from your vehicle on replays though? Okay, so we've lost our tank destroyer, now we have to jump into our tank. And this is it. So if we were playing, well, we are playing we're playing high, we're playing about 5 point something or other. But this is it. This is all that we've got for our vehicles. This is all the backup we've got for 4.7. Next we'll be dropping down to sort of the freeze and rank 2 tanks. You know, we've gone from rank. This is all the rank 3 tanks we've got that are effective, really. So of course, you could drop to the Breda, but again, you don't have any armor, and that thing's meant to be used for flanking. So if you need to push somewhere, you're really stuck, and it really makes for a hard game. And as I said, it just really affects the ability to actually fight in a battle, because you've got so few choices. Of course, you can use backups, which I've had to do. I've had to buy backup packs for my Italian forces, because I simply don't have the tanks to carry on with it, which is just so frustrating. So having that sort of Germany / Romania, maybe Hungary backups and tanks in there would really work for Italy, and really give them some different options. You know, you've got things like the Turan as well, which could be added and could work quite well. Oh, switch to player view, sorry about that. So we spotted a Crusader over there. And even the Nimrod, which was one of the first sort of proper, true SPAAs that ever really came into effect, that could be a really cool little vehicle to have in game. And it's an important vehicle to have in game, because a lot of these nations people forget about their sort of their influence and what they did. It's one of those things that people, when they can actually see it in the flesh, they don't realise, oh, okay, so this actually did happen. You know, it would just be a good little option for there, and some of these nations don't really have enough to make their own tech trees. You need a sort of iffy tech tree that's just a bit, oh yeah, they don't really have enough, but we could make it work that way. There are even some armoured cars like the 39 Casbah, which could be added as well. You know, just another armoured car model. You could make Italy the premier armoured car sort of nation, with just some of the armoured cars from like Hungary and Czechoslovakia and Romania and things like that, because there are a few of those lurking around that just don't fit anywhere else, but could fit really well into the Italian tech tree and really help out with the game and making it a little bit more balanced. Because if you were playing just Germany and Italy, which sometimes you are, you're at a real disadvantage because you lack so much compared to other nations. You really don't have the ability to frontally assault people because you don't have anything with enough armour. You know, the Tripio it's a Sherman, it's an M4, it's not got the greatest armour in the world, it's not terrible, but it's not going to be, you know, revolutionary. So it really does affect your games because you don't have the vehicles to push, whereas if you're facing Russia, America, Britain, France, I'm missing somebody but I can't remember who. Also, just armoured cars, they're just a pain in the arse sometimes. Luckily machine guns. But you know, just having that bit of extra beef in the tech tree would really help out and really make for a more effective game and make it less... It's just so annoying at the moment with things like the jumbos. You know, the jumbos just really ruin games. I've just got to, you know, jumbos need to be fixed a bit because 4.7 is just such a low BR for those bastards. The gun is not great, but the armour is just way too powerful. Took me a while to realise that this guy was actually not dead. because his tank is so dark. I thought he was actually dead. So yeah. So anyway, we take an aimed shot at the gun. So we blow out his gun, and this guy got really angry. Luckily, it was the same guy that bombed me, so it was nice. I got to really peeve him off, because, you know, typical Jumbo user, just no brains, just all push through and just do whatever we want to do. Yeah. Cobra King has fixed his gun, and there we go. Vengeance is beautiful. But you know, the thing is, like with Jumbos, they're just so frustrating because not many of the vehicles at 4.7 can penetrate them frontally. It's, you know, you could say, oh well, they have to face Tigers, and it's like, well, yeah, but they're sort of equal to Tigers. Things like the Tiger can't really. Yeah, the 88mm does struggle against the Jumbo sometimes frontally. You've got the KVs as well, and it's just some of these heavy tanks either don't belong at this BR, or some of the tanks that are facing them don't belong at that BR. Maybe lowering a lot of the other tanks so they don't face Jumbos as much, or making a matchmaker where Jumbos aren't constantly a thing, you know. So when you're playing, I don't know, 4.7, you don't constantly sort of get up-tiered. Just bounce the Jumbo on the side, take a shot straight at his cannon again, and this guy was absolutely fuming. Let's wait for it. Yep, there we go. And that made my day. So we try for a shot through the front. No, our gun's just not going to penetrate there. So we're going to go for a shot through the armour possibly, but he's taken out before we can get there. But yeah, I was happy for that. Yeah, it's always fun to piss off Jumbo players because they deserve it. You know, as I said, Jumbos are just way too overpowered. And the thing is, the Americans get too many of them. The Americans get too many heavy tanks. It's not just a thing of, you know, oh, the Jumbo is OP. Well, yeah, it is. But there's also the whole thing of the backups. So we get the win there, which is nice. And we'll just head to the end screen of that game. Okay, so here we are at the post-screen results. So not too bad there. We end up with a rank does not matter, which is always nice. Avenger, double strike, one shot, fighter rescue, tank rescue at 5 times, eye for an eye, 5 times professional, and 5 times shadow strike. And also managed to get a new achievement: destroy 6 enemies by not losing your vehicle. So yeah, that was quite a little nice little game there. So we made some nice little research points. Not a huge amount for the next tank up, unfortunately. I mean, 8,000 RP. Oh my god, that's so terrible. Look at how poor it is. But yeah, not a bad game indeed, and also a nice result for the old creditor. Okay, and I'm just going to add a little bit to the end here, just because I was talking about this. So, as you can see, the backups for rank 3, and I do not know why these are flipped around. This thing is way too powerful, this thing is way too weak at this BR, so flip it around. Look at rank 3 for Italy. We've got the 105-25, which is useless. It's okay, but it's pretty useless. The 75-34, which, again, is not great. You generally need to rely on the heat ammunition, which has a very low velocity, so it's pretty useless. So the only thing that's really good is the 75-46. So you have 2 vehicles at 4.7, and that's it. If you look at France for 4.7, you've got Le Jumbo, you've got the SA50, the FL10, and you can also take out the ARL 44 as well. So you've got a good group of tanks there, and of course, you know, you've got the M4A1 as well, just back at 3.3, but you also have the AMX 13, which is a very good little light tank. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 tanks. If you take out the premium, you've got 5 tanks. You've got 5 proper tanks you can use for this, and these are proper tanks. These have swiveling turrets. They've got armor. They're actually tanks. You know, they're not casemate tank destroyers. They are tanks. So 4.7 then jumps up to sort of 6.0 for the French. However, it's not such a big, doesn't feel like a huge leap. You know, you do miss some 5.0 tanks out, but you do have the 5.7 ARL 44, so you do have that ability to take out a 5.7, and these tanks do work in the higher up tiers as well. They're capable, they're more than capable, so you have a good range of vehicles for backups and stuff like that. If we look at Japan, now Japan is a bit of a horror show, but if we look at rank 3, it starts to get better, and you've got, say, we're looking at sort of 5.3 here. We've got the 76, we've got the Chairi, we've got the 5.7. If you've got premiums, you've got the heavy, you've got a Tiger, you've got the Chai-Nu 2, you've got the Chai-To, you've got the Chai-To Late, you've got the M24. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tanks, 6, 7 tanks if you got premiums, and these are all effective at 3.7 to probably about 5.7 without too much trouble. The Chai-Nu 2 with the 75mm Type 2 gun is effective pretty much against anything. The Koi ammunition is a very good ammunition type, and it's going to penetrate most things. These usually can penetrate jumbos frontally, you know, stuff like that. They're very good tanks. So you've got some very good tanks, not the best armour, but you've got good guns. Britain. Let's look at their rank 3 lineup, you know, so Challenger, Comet, Firefly, Churchill. For tank destroyers, you've got the Achilles, you've got the Avenger. You know, 5.7, you've got the Centurion. You know, you've got a really good lay of tanks. You've got the Scorpion Firefly, you've even got the AC Mark V, the cruiser tank, you know, all fantastic tanks. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 main tanks, 6, 7 if you include tank destroyers, 8, 9 if you include premium tanks. You know, got a fantastic range there, and these tanks again can be effective in up tiers. You know, a Comet can be effective against the 6.0. It's, the Challenger's a bit crap. The Challenger is a bit crap, you know, so it's not great, but it still can be effective. It's still got armour and it's still got a decent gun. You know, so you've got some decent vehicles. If you're going for 5.7, you've got the Centurion, you know, which is a hull-down beast. This thing is ridiculous when it's hull down. So you've got some fantastic tanks there, and then, you know, as soon as you get up, you've got really good tanks again, but you've got that good lineup. Russia. Yeah, Russia is just evil. Russia just has millions of tanks. So you've got the, of course, you've got the T-34s, you've got the KVs. KVs are strong, but they're not, I don't know, you can sometimes defeat them, you know, they don't feel overpowered, which is somewhat nice. But you've also got those casemate tank destroyers as well, you know. Russia is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 main tanks, 7, 8, 9 if you include premiums. Then you've got 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 tanks that you can, well, 15 tanks you can use including casemates. And you've got the ASU 57, which is just a monster. You know, but then you've got rank 5, which is like PT 76, IS2, T-34, 85, 5.7 lineup. You've got an amazing lineup, and it just has this nice flow to it. Look at Germany now. You know, Germany has this fantastic flow to it. And as I was saying, you know, putting a Panzer IV in there, you could have a Panzer IV, I think I could have Panzer IV Gs in there, you know, Panzer IV H would probably be okay, or even a J variant. You know, if you put a Panzer IV J into the Italian lineup, it would just help with an extra tank that can be used. But the Germans, you know, you've got the Tigers in rank 3. Like, rank 3, you've got Tigers, you've got 2 Tigers, even though they're 5.7, you know, you've got them. For your sort of 4.7, 4.3 lineup, you know, you've got some good tanks. The Panzer IV is an effective tank up to around about 5.7 to, I'd say about 6 actually. You know, the gun on that, the 75mm KWK-40 is a fantastic gun. You've got very good tanks there, you've got all the tank destroyers, so again it has a good flow. And then premium tanks, you've just got the pick of the bunch. And then we look at America. And if we look at the sort of main heavy tank users, Germany, Russia and America, you can sort of see they've got some really big heavy tanks, but the Germans don't effectively get heavy tanks till 5.7. The Russians have got KVs, so you've got the KV-1 at 3.7, which is just an absolute monster, but The KV-1 has a pretty awful gun on it. If you look at armour, the armour is not impossible to go through. 75mm is fairly thick armour, but it's not impossible to go through. It's also not angled as much. If you look at the sort of, when you get to the ISs, the ISs are tough, but they're 5.3, they're a higher BR, they're not 4.7. 5.3 I think is perfectly acceptable for an IS, and I think a jumbo is perfectly acceptable for a 5.3 or even a 5.0. But if we look at the Americans here, so their rank 3 lineup is one of the best in game, because you've got the M24 Chaffee, which is a tank that's I think pretty much still in service in some South American countries. You've got all the Shermans in the world, including the 76mm sort of wet ammunition rack Shermans, which are just monsters. Of course, you've got Le Jumbos. You've got the M6A1 again, which is a really heavy tank. It's very well armoured, and it can be an absolute nightmare to face. The gun on these things is very, very good. It's not the best in game, but it is still a very good gun. And when you've actually got the 76mm gun unlocked on this thing with the AP shell, you've got 150mm of penetration. You've got very good penetration with this thing, with good velocity as well. The M4A3E2, the jumbo, you've got APCR, which is going to penetrate pretty much anything at this BR rank. Even the M61 shot is dangerous. It's too strong. And the fact that you have two of these main heavy tanks as 4.7, plus most people get the Cobra King, you could get the T20 as well. If you have like a 5.0 lineup, you're going to be unstoppable almost. You have just such a variety of tanks, and it really, really hurts, especially in this Christmas event when everybody is using their jumbo, because it's just, what else would you do? Why else would you use anything else, really? It makes no sense. It really does hurt the game, because if you look at, I imagine if we look at the win-to-loss ratio of access over Allied teams recently, it's just through the roof for the Allied teams. Now, it's not to say that the access doesn't win a couple of times, because you do get sort of teams that aren't as good, things like that, but the balance is really not there for some nations. And the same goes for air, and the same goes for ships as well. But in Italy, it's really noticeable for the tanks, because this is such a big gap, it needs something to fill it, and there isn't really much to put in there. So it makes it very hard. Once you unlock 6.3, what are you going to do? You're going to take out these two tanks. Yes, you've got a very fast recon vehicle with a very good gun on it, but it has no armour. Yes, you have a very powerful gun, but you've got very little armour and you're not very fast. You just... I don't know. I really don't know. It's just frustrating. And it's something that needs looking at, because currently this is not working. It's all well and fine to say, if you were skilled enough, you'd be fine. But skill doesn't come into it sometimes. It's more the fact of it's broken and unbalanced. The main thing for me, I would say, is up the jumbo to 5.0. It's not a big jump. The jumbo's going to be fine, but it means those sort of, you might have less chance of meeting them in a match, and the Italians could maybe take out the Tripio and then take out a 4.0 lineup and not have to worry about facing jumbos every single match. Make them 5.3 maybe, and then it's going to be a little bit fairer. It just makes it so that they have a chance, because at the moment they don't stand a chance. So, as I said, it's just very frustrating and very annoying. Yeah, that's as far as I can go with it, really. That's my rant over and done with. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm sorry for the little bit of ranting there, but it is just something that really needs to be looked at. So, I hope it does. Let me know below in the comments what you think. And, well, I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.